right. So, oh my God. So now that you guys just screwed me up. I unfortunately have like three different themes in my head for this class. And one of the definitions of creativity is you take things that don't one way to think about creativity instead of like thinking it has to be like a creation of something new is you take things that don't seem connected and try to make them be connected,
Mhm,
right? See
mhm,
connections that you don't aren't first apparent.
mhm.
Well, I basically do that every time I teach with you guys or share a class with you guys. I'm basically making shit up, trying to make connections. And I think what's going on in my head today, there's like three things, and I think I'm going to try to make them go together, and I don't think they probably go together. So we're on an experiment today. Buckle up a little bit. First, I want to start with a lyrical name that tune, right? And so this song is kind of complicated. It's beautiful, and there's like the songwriter is watching I don't want to screw up, a woman he admires, and he's having his own thoughts, right? And this is not literal. Last time she jumped out the window, well, she only turned and smiled. Can anyone that can pop in and name this tune, then you got it, right? You might think she would say something, but you'd have to wait a while. And then the refrain that actually screws up I can't the name of that tune. She just turns her head and disappears, and I kind of like that style. Does anybody have anything coming up yet? It'd be amazing if you did. So I think this is unfair, right? But then the person writing the song, um, I identify with his view of watching this person, this entity that has a style that he admires. And he ends up saying, well, there she goes again. Keeps disappearing and reappearing. Um, okay, come on. I go up and down. I like this curious feeling. I know I see. It's like make believe. Cover your ears so you can hear what I'm saying. I'm not, here's one of my favorite lines that actually I came across this album. It tells you how old it is. Before I started yoga. I'm not lost, but I don't know where I am. I got a question. All right. This is what we like. Who knows what I'm thinking? Anybody got an idea about what the song could be? This is an obscure one. Lady Don't Mind. So he's so in a lot of ways, there's all this kind of movement in adaptive yoga and accessible yoga, and it's a good one. It's kind of like, oh, hey, everyone belongs in yoga, and it's like whatever you do is great, and it's right, it's sweet, it's good, and I'm not quite that way, right? Um, uh, I am more. I want, if you're that type of student, that's good, right? Good, good, good. And I want there to be an and. I want you to know that when you're practicing adaptive yoga, you're being a rebel, right? There's a subversive part of it because you're taking what appears to be one thing and exclusionary on one level, and you're going, all right, this is what they like. But who knows what I'm thinking, right? And so one of the things I wanted to talk about and before we started practicing was why do you think we're so attached to what yoga poses look like, the shape of yoga poses as being the important part? So that's a very complicated question, right? Obviously, it's something to achieve. You kind of go to these shapes, and if you can go to these shapes, then maybe you're a really advanced yoga practitioner, maybe. But here's a thing. I've told you this before, I think, if you've been in every class I've ever shared. Um, I had a friend that was the PT for Circus Soleil, and she would teach a yoga class to them weekly. And some of the Circus Soleil practitioners were some of the worst yogis she'd encountered because they had no patience. Because when they couldn't quite do something with their incredibly flexible bodies, couldn't quite get all the depth of what the instruction was, they got really frustrated. Okay, so being able to achieve a shape is not what yoga is. There's the what and there's the how, right? And they're not unrelated, but they're Gabrielle's making me thinking we should do something about with the jaw. I mean, she's moving her jaw or her neck. Can't quite tell what she's trying to open up, right? So, so this idea that there's an attachment to the shape of pose, and obviously I'm trying to share with you that that's not the core of yoga, right? That's really not what's going on. So have you noticed since you've maybe become, maybe you've been disabled your entire life, maybe you've kind of acquired it as you've gone along. Have you noticed that does anyone had to get better at waiting, what I might call slow time as opposed to fast time? Have you thought about slow time as a form of time travel? Remember, who knows what I'm thinking, right? Have you thought about, so what do you think patience is? So on some level, by the way, I'm curious, raise your hand if you consider yourself a patient person. Or actually raise yourself if you consider yourself impatient. Impatient. All right. Has that been it? How's that gone for you as you live with a disability? Right? Is it good? Bill says it goes well. Well, that's why he's after change, right? He's trying to change wheelchair production from the inside. That's the long play on impatience, right? But what do you think patience is? We don't have to, it's too big of a group probably to talk about that and Pat, you raised your hand, so unmute yourself. You got to unmute. Don't yell at the screen.
Well, that's an example of being impatient. Yes, I'm a very impatient person. And I've had disability all my life and I've never really learned it. And I think a patience is accepting things as they are at the moment and not wanting it to be faster, better, whatever, but just being more accepting.
Accepting. Everyone agrees with that?
No.
Yeah, I don't quite either. Who said no? I like that. Do you want to say more about that?
Do do dee do do dee. Do do dee 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 dee.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to try to translate that energetically.
Yeah.
But I kind of almost get it. Um,
I get it. It's the thing
so
I've learned most from
no,
being
I know, but I'm
handicapped.
trying to get, am I right about what you just did? The noise is like instead of accepting, you just kind of hum yourself a tune while it's happening. Is that kind of what you're doing? Like it's not that you accept everything, it's that you kind of go, oh, there's a lot of stories to be told right now, or I could hum a tune or whatever, and that's kind of what you mean by patience. Do do dee, do do dee. Am I even on track at all? Nod for me if I'm on track. Okay. All right. It's amazing how impatient we are at uncovering people's meanings, right? You have to sit there and let it in for a second. I had to sit there and let that settle in me for a while. It's like if you didn't have many words and you couldn't communicate in a group and you had something profound to say that you didn't have a lot of words to use, how would you do it? I think that's what he just did, right? So maybe I saw him just a little bit because I sat there and went, oh. I'm not going to throw away what happened. I'm going to like try to feel it, feel my way into it. Get into his space, what he's in, like all those things. Is that patience? It's actually letting someone communicate into a group, right? All right. So, so one of the things I thought this class was going to be about, and all these other themes happened, was going to be gravity shifts. The use of gravity and time in your asana as teachers, right? So how is time your teacher? Well, you could say a whole bunch of things. That's a whole bunch of unpacking, right? You practice over time because what you think you know when you do a pose the first 1,000 times is not what you're going to be thinking after 10,000. And if you actually do the pose the same way between 1,000 and 10,000, you're never going to get to 10,000 poses, right? You actually have to keep discovering new things in what appears to be the same shape, right? That the content of the deep content of yoga reveals over time. And yet, people, when they think about the shape of poses, they tend to get in a rush. I think that, you know, so I say things to like thwart that. There's no such thing as a yoga prodigy, right? You can't rush the way that time teaches. I'm moving around because I know I've used my word quota on you and you're all getting a little bit antsy because patience and words are not necessarily being your superpower. And for probably 2/3 of you. So you can decide what third or 2/3 you're in. So we're moving around because damn it, I'm not here just to hear words. Except how do you open up what appears to be ordinary and make it extraordinary, which every moment of your life is actually extraordinary. And your mind actually decides it's ordinary because it's impatient to get to the next thing. Right? So could you imagine if you had to go back in on your internet connection and go back to dial-up? Can you imagine how impatient you would be? Pissed off, even when your phone slows down too far? Like, oh, for fuck's sake, this is just killing me. Because I expect time to go. Who knows what I'm thinking? So I'm 13. I'm being told I don't feel anything from my chest down. That's not quite what I'm thinking is true, right? But I accept, I swallow the world. Right? I'm taking my legs wide because I want to open up the base of my groin and base of my spine and change gravity and get my legs in a slightly different position. So whatever you do to get your legs in a slightly different position, notice the change, right? So I'm sitting there and then I watch the train wreck. Now it's pretty easy to watch the train wreck of society right now, right? You know, but even back then, I'd be like, okay, okay, this is what we like. I'll try it for a while. But part of me stayed back. This is why the rebellious part of you being an adaptive yoga student. Don't just try to fit in when you're a yoga student. Explore. Explore the space you're in. Explore the body you actually have, not being patient to achieve a body that you don't have. Maybe you're supposed to learn along the way. So I'm making a gravity shift. I'm doing things I've been teaching all the last few weeks, but I'm trying to like take the classes that we've been doing and make them quick. So I'm leaning, putting my forearm on my bone, on my thigh bone. I'm pushing down on my opposite leg, thigh, and hip to open the crease, to lift my chest, to make a connection that's in every frickin' standing pose. right? Every single one, right? A connection of openness between the junction of my spine to my legs. So I have space in there because space is a patient form of awareness. Empty space makes the mind quiet down and cease its oscillations. If you're going to utilize it in your breathing and your movement, and don't forget, your breathing is a form of movement, right? So, how do you get and activate the space? But if you're in love with the shape of a pose, you're not thinking about the space in the pose. You're trying to achieve something, which when achieving keeps you focused, right? But I can tell I'm sticking doing this a few more times as I'm getting ready to share more because it feels good. This is the advantage of not coming to a class and practicing on your own. You get to kind of stay with things that feel good, but you don't just stop at what feels good. You let what feels good be an opening, not an end, right? So as you're getting, as you know, I've been trying to say the last few classes, I've been trying to say, right, that the crease at the top of the femur bone to the spine is really important, especially if you're sitting a lot, right? So now I'm going to lift up and change the way, letting there be space so I'm hanging, so that gravity starts giving my spine some traction. So rather than trying to lift my chest from a heavier base, I'm trying to lift my spine from a lighter base. Lift my chest from a lighter base. Now I'm going to sit back down. And now, for those of you that can't lift up at all and use traction, what can you do to create a lighter base? So you start thinking, is that why he says ground through your sitting bones and lift your lower abdomen up? Is that why that instruction was happening over and over again in his classes? Right? Because everyone get really heavy in your butt, like drop your chest, lift your chest from there. See how nice that is, right? It's not that great. Now, ground your sitting bones, lift your lower abdomen up. Oh, and all of a sudden, when I ground my sitting bones and lift my lower abdomen up, I make a connection to my heels. Have you noticed I've been emphasizing that like for weeks now? Yeah, because that's actually Tadasana, but it's Tadasana in seated form. Good gravy. Tadasana isn't just growing out of the ground, it's shooting into the ground and it's rising up, right? There's way more in Tadasana than you think. And the basic core of having a different relationship that your tailbone and low spine is in relationship to your legs is a lot of what Tadasana is. Opening up your hip flexors. So now we're going to do something again, we're trying to use gravity now and changes in gravity to open up different sensations in different parts of the body. And I'm trying to notice. So I'm going to lean way back. You think I'm teaching a back bend. Sure, I'm kind of teaching a back bend. I'm going to come more out to the edge of my chair if I can, right? So I'm going to be leaned a little bit farther back in my chair, right? And I'm doing something we did in back bends last week and the week before. I'm pushing on my femur bones. I'm taking my hands. I'm pushing on my femur bones. And I'm falling back. And at a certain point that where I'm emphasizing this open space, I don't lift my chest too soon. So like, this is what I mean about patience. It's even in a pose. If I think, oh, I'm doing a back bend and my mind's thinking about back bend, I'm going to do this and I'm going to lift my chest too fast. I'm going to take my head back too fast. The chest lifts and the head goes back the most efficiently if I'm in the legs enough. I have to be patient, and my mind needs not to think about the shape of the pose. I need to feel my way into the pose, which is different, but it takes being sensing stuff, patience. So I'm doing this, I'm hitting this way, I'm getting this space. And I'm trying to pay attention to at what point, as I'm pushing on my femurs, leaning back, does it make the most sense? And how should I lift my chest? And then release. If I do it fast, which I'm about to do, and if you want to do it fast, you'll leave a whole bunch of currency on the table, right? You won't get it all. You'll go, because I'm in love with the shape, my mind's ahead. Oh, I'm just going to go back because I'm thinking the pose happens when I'm being not a good yoga student. I'm thinking the pose is happening with how far and how back bended I get, as opposed to what's coming with me when I'm bending. Patience, right? So I'm going to try it again. I'm going to go here, going to pull my femur. So as I'm pulling on my own femur bones here, and the flesh on of my thigh, I'm really looking for changes in my hip flexors. Then I start to lengthen up the belly, open my chest insofar, right? Take my head back, and then come on back. And when you get all those spaces, when you come back, do you feel more of the buzz? The subtle buzz of like, oh, I think I might have engaged more of myself. So what do you think self-realization is? Do you think it's a mental concept? I don't think so. I think the West has us convinced self-knowledge and self-realization are the same thing. No, they're related, right? So now, remember back last week, if you didn't go to them last week, you missed it. So Angelique, I'm about to call on you because I feel like I'm losing you, right? I'm losing you. She's done too many. She's had a rough night and is not sleeping well enough or something. I'm watching you more. I'm watching Jaws. I'm watching more than you guys all know, right? So, so, so remember camel pose? Yes, was it last week we talked about camel pose? Was that
In,
in class?
in team adaptables.
Oh no, that was team adaptables. Did we not talk about camel pose at all in last week's class? Didn't we do back bends?
I thought we did back bends.
Yeah, we did.
We did do back bends.
Yes. Show me camel pose, Bethany.
Remember, because Jane taught me about camel
But that was team adaptables,
that
is
way.
what Bethany's saying.
What was that?
I don't know. I thought we did did we do back bends last week? Does anyone remember?
We did. You just never named Camel.
Who said that? I like you, whoever said that.
Gabrielle.
Good. All right. So this is one of those poses that some people hate or whatever, and you think, how do I do that seated and all this stuff? And I'm not going to get way into this pose. But one of the ways to help this pose, there are a couple different places. So if you realize that poses are springboarding out of the earth, so Bethany, you have your cursor, right? Show her calves, like push down her calves. You'd actually springboard her energy by hitting right down on the calf, putting the bone in greater contact with the earth. And when that happens, a lightness would come into her body and she'd open up a little bit more. Another place to help her would be to give her just a slight touch right between her shoulder blades. So show there, right? Right through there. And especially if she were to, in her imprint, be patient enough to hear it in relationship to her shins. But you can tell that there's a midpoint juncture point that actually would be her tailbone, right? Because if you get those two places going, if it gets stuck on her tailbone and doesn't get through there, it's not going to come into camel pose. So so that's the place. But I'm telling you, if you go there right away, if you give her a little nudge on her tailbone, she won't be able to process it. She'll just have it feel good for a second and won't know how to do it, right? To contain it, right? So point to the calves, up between the shoulder blades, and know that, and then the junction point is going to be the key to the pose, not the only key, but it's a big key to the pose energetically. All right, so get rid of that picture. So we're actually just doing Ustrasana here, or what, something like it, right? But I want the tailbone more in it, right? So how are we going to do that? How the hell are we going to be patient enough to use gravity, conjoin sensations between past, slightly past, present, and help it guide the future, all in a back bend, right? All right, so we're going to go through that again. And your mind's wanting to rush because now you got the picture of that shape. You might be going, oh, I better try to get farther back because that must be where all the pose is. No, the pose is actually in her base, right? The real pose is in the base, right? So I'm going back like this. I'm pushing out on my legs. I'm trying to open that space because without the hips open, right? When you were to like help her and just nudge her tailbone, without that space open, it wouldn't translate to the rest of her body, right? So I was having you pay attention to this and then ground up through your torso and figure out how to open your torso before you just took your head back. And then at what point do you start lifting your chest? How do you keep attention enough at that tailbone thing? So what am I doing now to like create the sensations? I'm pushing in on my own hips right here. I'm making sure that this gets an imprint because it's easy for my mind to feel my hands and my chest lifting and bypass exactly what I'm trying to open. So I'm pushing in on the bones on my outer hips, right? Oh, so is anyone actually doing that? Doesn't that kind of feel good? Is that just me? Does that kind of feel good to pin your own hips? That's why we have people belt their hips, right? Because containment around your life chakra actually makes you feel more life. Huh. What the hell kind of truth is that? Right? So I'm doing this. So I'm not just doing, I got this imprint. I'm making sure I contain my hips. And when I contain my hips, when I push on my own hip bones a little bit, does anyone feel an opportunity to lift your chest a little bit better? Again, it's hard to keep patient with all these instructions, isn't it? I just want to do it. Go ahead. You can do that on your own, right? So here. Going back over with my hips more contained. In other words, I got more Tadasana in the pose. I'm opening my chest. But when we looked at the shape of that camel pose, didn't it look like she was having more fun than that? Like the containment of the hips, but she seemed like she was flying kind of. That's why we got to get the tailbone to jump. The tailbone to jump. The tailbone to jump. How the fuck do you get your tailbone to jump? What the hell does that even mean? Right? So now I'm going to lean forward and I'm going to lift my low abdomen, i.e. my tailbone, up through my chest into my mouth. I'm going to catch it. So remember, prana follows consciousness more than it follows breath. Right? So if I can make connections at different parts of my body, tailbone, abdomen, sitting bones down, abdomen up, lift it up through my chest, catch it in my mouth, Because remember, the energy is already happening before the actual actions. Right? So I'm going to try it again. Tailbone, chest, mouth. By the way, to give up weird stuff, this is part of how Joe learned to better transfer. Started to make this connection. Tailbone, chest, mouth. As anyone that has trouble standing up, this fundamental connection is going to help you stand up from a chair. Tailbone, chest, mouth. Make the connection, right? So now I'm going to do the same thing. So what I've done now is, in order for me to feel something so subtle, I have to create conditions of safety. So I've got my hand down here balancing me on my leg rest, wherever you can get safe, right? I got my hand on my wheel. So I've got the ability, the safety to feel the subtlety of sitting bones down, tailbone up, lift the tailbone up through my chest to my mouth. All right. So when you make that overt connection and you let it go, do you start to feel everything start to buzz and jingle a little bit in the subtle part of your mind-body relationship? Anybody with me with that? Yeah, so I'm going to breathe into that a few times. Stephanie, can you feel what I'm talking about? Are you ready for the world to be that big, Stephanie? Yeah, no, I know it's intense. Your mind doesn't get to be in charge of it. Who knows what I'm thinking? I don't know about you, but I got handed a whole weird world of limitations when not just my wheelchair was effed up with too much technology. They threw me a conception of my body. So, by the way, I'm practicing. So you can't, I do little things even as I'm talking. You should be doing the same thing. I'm rocking forward and back in my chair, and I'm practicing the whole thing I'm talking to you. I'm rocking, I'm going up, I'm catching it the whole time I'm talking, right? Because this action is at the core of that camel pose. Can you see why I'd want to start her by grounding her calves? Because she's not going to get that it's got to come out of the earth. We got to get this, not this action to happen in our body. We got to get it to come out of the earth, right? So I'm doing this action and making sure behind my eyes, I'm staying connected to my heels. This is what Joe figured out when he figured out how to transfer, right? That this action up actually reveals where the legs are. Right? It's really so I'm doing the whole back bend right now, and I'm talking to you. As you're listening, I want you to be doing the whole back bend, right? The whole action's happening. Can you see how the mouth was the window dressing, but it helps to continue it? It's like, oh my God, there was a whole other reality happening here. I'm trying to figure out chronically how to communicate to you what I would be communicating if that woman were in my class, if I were to take a dowel and just touch her lightly on the tailbone, right? So try this. Like I'm trying to have this, what I'm doing here into my palm. I'm having it as I do it into my palm, I'm trying to have it touch my tailbone. And I'm trying to catch it. All right. Hmm. I'm adding a little bounce in there now too. Because if I get too serious about prana, it's not as fun. Right? So I'm bouncing a little bit in there. Otherwise, it gets too static. Yeah, keep it light. Use the space. Remember, space takes patience. It takes having your mind not be in your frontal cortex. It has it be in a more pure observer of what's happening. It doesn't get to be a doer. The mind has to be a receiver. All right, back to the back bend. All the pieces. Now, I can tell you that me unpacking this pose like this could never have happened if I had just been listening to the world as they told me my body was going to be. Be a rebel in your yoga practice. Find a way to have your rebel not be violent. But I tend to try to have you be an explorer. But, all right. So I'm going to get this bouncy energy here by just bouncing, by using gravity to actually make there be more space in my low back. The problem is I'm doing this by leaning forward. And in camel pose, I have to have my hip flexors open more. Shit. Right? So now I'm going to lean back. I'm going to keep that feeling of bounce, right? And I'm going to try to translate it into, I forgot to do my glamour shot. God damn it. We're going to have to do it at the end, right? Right? So now I'm going to do, remember this part of it where I pin my hips? I'm going to try to actually make a movement. I don't know if you can see it on my legs. I'm actually trying to pin my hips, right? Catch with my chest and bounce just a little bit. Catch it with my mouth, right? So there's a little bit of bounce. I'm going to jiggle a little bit and go, wait. If gravity were different, I think I could just levitate off my chair. I think part of me thinks, wait, something's weird here. That's why I say things like the subtle body is not constrained by gravity in the same way your outer body is, right? All right. So now I'm going to add to the sensation. I'm going to go behind me and I put my hand on my tailbone and I'm going to go boop, boop. Now I'm going to try to do that, slow it down, be patient, have it come up through my chest and catch it with my mouth. Uh-oh, that worked. You can tell right away when something works. Oh dear. Now I can tell, even though it's going to hurt my shoulder, that if I'm being a good yogi, I'm going to have to try to do it with my other arm too. Right. And that's not happy on my shoulder. Can't quite do it as well. Right. But I'm going to try to get the bounce coming through this shoulder too. Right. So this looks a little different. I can't push on my tailbone the same, but I'm going to get that little bounce and I'm going to catch it up through my chest and go to my mouth. Mm. Ooh. And I'm going to lift up again. I'm going to bounce because that one's more fun, isn't it? Right? Yeah. Oh no. All this for one camel pose that includes the tailbone. All right. So I don't do it here. As soon as I push it on my femur bones, before I pull them this way, I'm remembering the bounce of my tailbone up through my chest. I'm moving my jaw. So all this jaw thing is because Gabrielle was fixing her jaw during the beginning of class, right? So I'm like catching it. Now I'm going to push on my femur bones away. And as I do, I'm trying to catch the front of my hips, my hip flexors more, right? But now I'm going to push in just a little bit on my femur bones so I can get my tailbone to bounce and catch it with my chest before I take my head back, right? So now I'm doing a part of the pose, right? To catch it through my spine. And now I'm going to come back here for a second and say, now I'm about to catch it with my mouth. And my mouth is going to feel like a smile. And it's going to make it happier because all this work is kind of serious. So I'm getting my jaw ready so my lips can feel the bounce. All right. In, remembering the bounce, push, open, through. My mouth catches. Oh, I can see why my collarbones need to spread. Mm. And my jaw needs to open. Now, as I'm in the whole pose, you keep staying it. Here comes the dowel on the tailbone. Let there be a bounce. Let there be like a shock wave up through the base of your spine. Good. And then come on back. So, by the way, it's called Ustrasana. But as I was doing it, I think it might be, even though I've never done camel, by the way, I've never did this. Well, maybe when I was a little kid, I didn't know it. But when I'm doing all that, I do wish someone would ground the back of my calves into the earth. I can totally feel why that would be the case, right? So now somehow I got to get there chronically, not with my imagination. And I'm going to do the same pose. And I'm going to let there be a shot of earth coming from the ground into the back bend. Because I've been practicing my whole life. I've been figuring out how to ground and channel earth into my poses. You've been doing the same thing the whole time you've been with me. So one of the reasons why I emphasize bones so much is because that's how we internalize earth energy, in my opinion. Our consciousness makes it as bones. So I'm going to sit here and go, oh, okay. And by the way, I'm not activating my imagination. I'm emptying my mind so I can feel the energy at the core. Because I'm going to try to do something that if it defaults to my imagination, I've fucked up. Oh, guess what I'm doing right now? I'm starting the bounce, going up through from my tailbone to my chest to my mouth. I'm making all the connections. As I start to make the connections, I can feel from previous class bringing my femur bones together, right? And that bounce had happened right there. And I'm practicing the whole sequence. And I'm emphasizing it with my hands to you, but I want you to be seeing that through your core. The back bend has begun, right? And if I wanted to break this apart again, which I don't, I'd stop and have you push on the front of your own knees to remind you where your shins are, right? In fact, I'm going to do it to remind myself. So I'm going to push on my shins because I want the earth to lift the camel, right? I don't want it just to be my action. Okay, so I'm going to catch it again. I'm going to go through it again. See, now I've got my shins better because I touched them. All right, so now I'm going to change gravity, right? I'm going to lean back now. I'm going to lose the earth a little bit. By leaning back, I lose some of the connection to the earth. I'm going back. I'm trying to refine more of the earth by touching my legs. I'm practicing that sitting bone. Well, I'm going to do it here. I'm going to come back into neutral. I'm going to push on my femur bones in. Actually, pin my hips, actually, because that works better. Because if I pin my hips, I can see where the dowel is going to hit my tailbone. right? And I'm going to catch it. I'm going to process the catch, the pranic catch, the pranic continuation. All the instructions are pranic continuations, right? Now I'm going to notice the change of gravity, go back. As soon as I do, I'm putting my hands on my femur, on my mid femur bone, and I'm practicing this catch. Now the connection between all these points is now going skyward, right? But we know we want to get the earth into our tailbone in a second, and we're going to need it from our shins. Oh, see, I just was able to make the connection, right? But I want the tailbone coming up, catching through my chest to my mouth. So I'm just going to remind myself quickly to touch the front of my knees. Oh, there's the earth. Oh, God, that feels like nourishment, right? So now I'm going to go back, catch it, sitting bones down, abdomen up through the chest, mouth. Now I'm going to try to help myself balance a little bit to get my tailbone more alive. As I do, I'm going to let the live tailbone show me where my heels are. Then I'm going to allow pressure on the front of my knees. And I'm going to broaden across my chest, lengthen my bicep and tricep as I lift my sternum up, making sure my mouth is catching the pose. Good, and then release. Ooh. I'm coming back, coming forward, using gravity to calm my nervous system down, to show me where the earth is landing. Now, sometimes I get lost in my own world. Like that was a really intense pose for me. Was that hard for anyone else doing it?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to land here, bones to the earth, bones to the earth. And I'm going to smile and know that the earth will always give me another nut. So I'm going to lift my sternum as my bones are landing to the earth. And I'm going to smile again. I'm going to broaden across my collarbones a little bit. I'm going to let the bones nourish my lift. I'm going to move my mouth around, going like, oh, I remember that catch. Hmm. Ah. And then I'm going to fall back into the earth and go, I'm so glad the earth holds me up when I sleep. Really grateful for that. That I don't always have to be happening skyward. And then I'm going to do the whole class in this little lift. I'm going to start to open up and I'm going to watch the whole class happen. And I'm doing it with way less effort. So when you catch it with your mouth, can you feel the inhalation want to happen? If you didn't, make it happen, right? So try it again. I'm going to go down to where the earth's got me. I'm going to subtly make the whole class happen. So I'm not going to catch it with my mouth on retention. I'm going to catch it on inhalation. And then you got to figure out what to do on exhalation. Try it again. From the stillness, the calmest body you're ever going to touch is the earth. Rise, whole class. And then release. What I'm trying to get you to potentially see is there's the potential to go further into the pose pronically while falling back towards the earth on exhalation. One last time. Start to come out of the calm. So that's a lot of things to be aware of in any movement. And I remember hearing someone report my yoga teacher say to me that when she was in class with BK Sangar, he said something like, my very, very best students can only do 5 or 6 things simultaneously, or be aware of 5 or 6 things simultaneously, 4 or 5, 4 to 6. That's with the mind, right? But the happening, if you're patient, all these things are actually already happening in a movement, right? So I've been thinking about the limits. If I try to be active and be aware of it, I can't. But if I'm patient enough to be an observer of the happening, it's already happening. So back to this final little thing about patience, right? I think patience, just to throw in something I meant to talk about, I think an expansion of human consciousness will be the ability to be simultaneous. If you notice, our culture has a really hard time letting simultaneous truths be in tension with each other. This is one of our big, huge failings right now, right? So my hands are together. I'm feeling my midline. I'm feeling the earth at the heel of my hands. And I'm simultaneously, all those things are happening, and I'm spreading the skin on my palms. I'm catching it with the lift of my chest. I'm dropping my sitting bones, my shoulder blades. My sitting bones are helping me are going down to help me rise up to follow the skin on the palms. All this is already happening. I'm just following. Patience is simultaneity. You're practicing it in every yoga pose. Self-realization comes out of emptiness, not out of the shape of the pose. For some reason, we're not inhabiting this world. Okay, this is what we like. Who knows? Who knows what I'm practicing? He sees that all in the lady that doesn't mind. And then release back into your chair. So after an active class, some people argue that because I got to put Shavasana as the last pose in Light on Yoga because it's the hardest. Emptiness is the hardest? Probably. So I'm finding a position where I have enough pranic structure, symmetry, so I can really let the chair hold all of me up. The rebel and the acceptor. Patience clearly does have an acceptance component, but only because acceptance reveals the dimension of simultaneity that allows me to see camel pose without the picture, to do camel pose without the picture, like in the picture. Make sure you're softening the inside of your mouth. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Like seriously, thank your body. Not just with your head. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation. Slightly longer exhalation. It's a good chance you'll be moving the rest of the week. Little movements, big movements. When you're ready, if you haven't, open your eyes and let the stuff in. Right? So in Shavasana, one of the things that you're trying to feel and submit to is the hum that kind of guides the universe or comes out of the universe, right? And whether you can get that to come through your body equally has nothing to do with the hum. It has to do with you letting your body be the conduit that it already is. There are days I can't do Shavasana very well because my mind's too active, right? There are days when I'm not as good of a conduit. So I remember, I've told this story before, but it's one of those stories I think about I hope that seemed like a pretty active class to me. So I feel a little bit worn out. I feel the hum of a little bit of fatigue. Um, and that typically when a class is decent, the fatigue, you feel it throughout your body, not just in one muscle group, right? That it kind of helps you feel the general fatigue can kind of reveal to you like the general thing that's happening in your empty spaces. Um, but the trying to think how to say this, like whether you can receive it equally through your body, um, means like the mind has to be quiet, but you have all the patterns that make your body not symmetrical. So the story I wanted to tell was one of the times that biggest Iyengar came to the United States in 1997, it was harmonic convergence, which I don't even know what that is exactly. It's some astrological phenomena that something gets in greater order. And I remember hearing this is one of those stories I think about both in Shavasana and especially in pranayama. And apparently he went up to one of his senior teachers and asked, so there's a particular day harmonic convergence was isolated to. And he asked his senior teacher, he said, did you feel it in your pranayama, this alignment of the heavens? And the teacher went, no, I don't know if I did. And he goes, I don't think so either. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what this is about exactly. But the idea that a pranayama practice that was shavasana with breath and breath with technique could be able to detect a shift in the hum, right? So the alignment of the planets being a configuration that maybe becomes a, a good and less good conduit of the existential hum. So in a way, astrology is trying to say if the planets were in a certain configuration, that's when you were born into a certain hum, and it affects your whole life. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's not true. I'm fine with whatever people want to, whatever, right? But the idea that your shavasana is a reflection of the universe, and that if you're really good at introducing movement into the hum that's a reflection of the universe, you are in everything at once. If that's true, we can surely do camel pose, right? Surely we can do camel pose. All right. Namaste. Spirit in me bows the spirit in you, but only if you explore, right? Only if you're a little bit rebellious. And the one thing I like about the lady that doesn't mind is she just turns her head and disappears. Or if you wait for her to say something, you might have to wait a while because there isn't much to say. You can see why some of those meditators have less to say. What's to say? Right? All right. Have a good week.